I guess we can talk about it? And just hold up for a second here, because the point of this video is not whether or not I believe the rumor is true. The point of this channel is to just talk about hypotheticals, right? To flesh things out. Does this make sense? Can it work? Would we want uh, this hypothetical even? So with that in mind, it doesn't really matter how much of a long shot it is. It's a talking point, so we're going to talk about it. The TLDR of this video is that holy crap, Gabriel Landeskog is good. And it's not just about the chart. No, it's about the fact that the guy throws hits, fights, is a captain, is a power forward. He's a dying breed. And a lot of people want to talk about, oh, how are you going to replace Zach Hyman? How are you going to just get to that bar? How about someone that just flies so far above it and plays the exact same style of game? I don't even really know how to talk about this player, because if you're comparing him to Hyman, Hyman's relentless. Landeskog's just straight up SOB. He's 28, turning 29, and Zach Hyman just turned 29 last month. So they're basically the exact same age. The one thing I did not realize about Gabriel Landeskog is that over the last 4 seasons, he's got 233 points over the last 259 games. Playing with Nathan MacKinnon or not, which we will look at, that's damn good. It's damn good. Now, this past season, Landeskog did spend the majority of his ice time at 5-on-5 with Mikko Rantanen and Nathan MacKinnon. Both awesome players, but even in the limited amount of ice time that he spent away from Nathan MacKinnon, the lines were still stupid effective for the Colorado Avalanche. He's a damn good player in his own right. Another thing that I just did not realize about Landeskog is just the volume of faceoffs that he takes and the much more than marginal rate that he wins them at. If you've watched the Leafs the last number of years, Hyman takes faceoffs on his strong side. He does. He takes a lot of them at 5-on-5 on the penalty kill, and even though Hyman shoots right, Landeskog shoots left, that is a huge bonus to have in a player. Now, Landeskog doesn't necessarily play on the penalty kill. Zach Hyman did that, but if you're looking at the power play, oh my god, the night and day difference that the Colorado power play was with him on the ice compared to what they were without him. And now this website does not have shot data from this past season, but from the 17-18 season to the 19-20 season, we can see where Landeskog was most effective or where he was used on the Colorado power play. He's a net front guy, and on the Toronto Maple Leafs' power play, you're seeing John Tavares in that bumper slot, William Nylander in front of the net, sometimes Zach Hyman, but that power play really struggled. And if you're listening to the way that the Leafs kind of want to run their power play for next season, and it does make sense, they want Mitch Marner below the goal line and not at the top of the circle or patrolling the point. And that does make sense, right? To allow your best passer to see the entire zone and every option that he has in front of him. And if you're bringing in Landeskog to fill that role in front of the net, then that frees up one of Nylander or Tavares to play elsewhere. And I think that Tavares does retain that high slot bumper area on the power play, or maybe the Leafs change up their configuration a little bit, but I think that they do want to use William Nylander on the opposite side circle to Austin Matthews. Nylander being a right shot, Matthews being a left shot, the one-timers do match up. Now, David Pagnotta did also mention on his Fan 590 radio hit that he believes that the Avalanche are offering anywhere between $5.5 and $6 million on this player, and that he believes that it's going to take a 5 to 7 year deal to get this done. And if he's 29 years old to start the season, well, in November, he's going to be 34 at the end of a 5-year deal, 36 at the end of a 7-year deal. But we'll talk about the lasting effect of a large contract from a player like Gabriel Landeskog in a minute or two. I just have him penciled in here at $7.5 million. That number could be 7. And the answer to whether it works or not is kinda, I guess. I mean, this is only with having a guy like Kerfoot moved out. You still have a guy like Justin Hall here. You still have Travis Dermott as a scratch, making $1.5 million. This is with Pierre Engvall to start the season in the minors. And you got $2 million left to sign a backup goalie. By the way, if you're interested in who that backup could be, I did a video on the channel previously talking about that, which I will leave linked above the screen. But maybe $1.5 million is too much to spend on your 7th defenseman, and I don't think that Kerfoot is a player that you just surrender to the Kraken for nothing. This is a 26-year-old who is capable of playing center, not in a shutdown role, who filled a huge void for the Toronto Maple Leafs in the playoffs this past year. This is a player who has raw tools and ability to be something. He just needs to play with the correct line mates in the correct role. And because the signing bonuses are already paid out on players, Kerfoot's a guy who's only owed $3.45 million in real money over the next 2 seasons. And I'm not comparing the two players or the two situations, but you can see the way the general managers are accepting of maybe acquiring a player who has a higher cap hit, but is owed very little in actual dollars over the remaining part of their contract. This is, of course, Duncan Keith's deal, and he's only owed $3.6 million in real money over the next 2 seasons, but of course, carrying a cap hit of over $5.5 million, and they got assets back for this player. So I'm not necessarily looking to give Kerfoot away for absolutely nothing like a conditional 7th, but if you're looking at the amount of draft picks that the Leafs have in this year's draft and next year's draft, yeah, I'll take 2 or 3 draft picks for the guy. And I believe if you're trading him, you have until Saturday to do so. Otherwise, the Leafs would have to have him on their protection list. And if he's on their protection list, then they're more than likely exposing both Justin Hall or Travis Dermott. And if you're looking value-wise between the 3 players, Kerfoot, Justin Hall, Travis Dermott, what's more valuable? A 30-year-old defenseman who's kind of tied to Jake Muzzin, who makes $2 million a season, a 26-year-old center who just had a really great playoff run and filled a huge void for the team, or a $1.5 million 24, 25-year-old defenseman who's kind of been declining and saw his role like slashed in half with the team last year. It's Kerfoot. Kerfoot has the most value between the 3. So you protect 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, 1 goalie. You trade Kerfoot at the draft for some draft picks. You allow them to select Travis Dermott. And now, instead of just having $2 million to fill out that backup goaltending position, and this is assuming a couple of things, bringing back a guy like Alex Galchenyuk, paying Landeskog $7.5 million, which is a lot. And this also has a placeholder for a new shutdown centerman at $2 million. Maybe that's a little bit cheaper. Maybe that's $1.5 million. Maybe the Landeskog deal is $7 million. That's an extra $1 million to work with. And then at that point, you can find another depth defenseman. But even if that doesn't happen and Landeskog's at 7.5 and that placeholder is at 2, even with a guy like a Ben Hutton here and Pierre Engvall as depth waiting in the minors, you still have $2.8 million to go out there and get a backup goalie. And when it comes to signing a soon-to-be 29-year-old for a contract of 5 to 7 years at that amount, even if it is only $6.5, $7 million, doesn't matter. I have a really hard time caring. And it's just because when you're looking around the team here, Tavares has got a 4-year deal. Matthews has 3 years left. Marner 4 years. Nylander 3 years. Muzzin 3 seasons. Brody 3 seasons. It's like the team's going to look entirely different 3 to 4 years from now. And that's not to say that all of those guys are leaving in 3 to 4 years, right? You can bring back Tavares on a reduced rate. You can bring back Matthews. You can bring back all of these guys. But, the entire defensive core, everything is going to be different. Those guys are in their primes now. You are trying to win in the next 3 to 4 seasons. Otherwise, the last 3 or 4 years have just been for nothing if you're not trying to win right now. And the salary cap, while it is flat right now, it's not going to stay flat forever, right? It could increase. We could see increases of 2 to 2.5, maybe even $3 million a season, 2 or 3 years from now. So I have a really hard time. Gabriel Landeskog is not Zach Hyman. He is not. He's the same type of player, but he is so much better than Zach Hyman. And that's no disrespect to him, but he's just Gabriel Landeskog. He's in a tier of his own. Of his own. And the thing about Landeskog or Taylor Hall or Dougie Hamilton or any other big UFA is that you're not giving up assets to sign those players. You're just giving up cap space. And the Leafs do and they don't have a cap space. They do because they're under the cap with a roster like this. But they don't in the sense that they don't have cap space to facilitate maybe the depth that you would kind of like to see. But at the same time, you have to really weigh the salary cap to asset ratio. Maybe it's a better thing in your mind to go after a Tyler Bertuzzi, but you have to give up a lot of assets. to get that player. Yes, he'll be cheaper against the cap, but you're giving up younger controllable assets in draft picks and prospects. And if you're penciling in a $2.5 million placeholder at the backup goaltending position, 320 grand, like we've shown on this channel lots of times, is not a lot of space maybe in free agency, but at the trade deadline, especially when you're getting 50% salary retained, maybe even double salary retention, so you're getting a player at a quarter of their cap hit, which is the cap hit that is just remaining for the remainder of the regular season. There is prorated greatly. You could do quite a bit with that much space. And if there's one takeaway from all the videos that I do here talking about several different talking points and this player and that player and this scenario and that scenario, it's that there isn't one way to go about it, right? I'm not going to be upset. Maybe I'll be happier with certain situations or scenarios than others, but there is no wrong way really to go about an offseason until you see what happens, right? During the regular season and then in the playoffs. You know, the Leafs had a really good offseason last year. Nothing happened. It's really different talking about the Leafs this offseason compared to last offseason because it was clear, right? The changes were obvious. They were trading Kapanen, they were trading Johnson, they were doing this and they were doing that. They needed another defenseman, but they did all of those things and it didn't work. And they don't want to trade players that maybe people would be interested in moving. So the options are few, but at the same time plentiful, right? Like we said, we've talked about a lot of different scenarios. So what are your guys' thoughts? Let me know down in the comment section, and make sure to like the video if you did like it, and subscribe for more, because more is always on the way. And I guess I'll talk to you guys again shortly. I mean, I don't know. I'm still even trying to process just the thought or the idea of having a beautiful Swedish power forward on this team. Expensive one, but damn good one. Really, really damn good.